Hey y'all, Lewis Weil Company. How are y'all doing? I just celebrated 10 years of being self employed, and I wanted to sit down and uh, share some thoughts and do a little reflecting. Because I can't believe it's already been 10 years, but also I totally can because 10 years ago was several lifetimes ago. I was not a financial planner before this. If you don't know, I used to be a molecular biologist. I worked in laboratories starting as a sophomore in college and was in laboratories for well over a decade. And, I can't believe that I'm not a scientist. Well, I can now, but at the time, if you had told me that I wouldn't be a scientist later in life, I would have been shocked. So it's an interesting path to getting here, and I thought I'd share it and a little bit of reflections on it. So I actually came to Austin once upon a time for grad school. That's how I ended up here. This was back in 2006, so almost 20 years ago. And for a variety of reasons, the PhD program didn't work out. There were like funding issues and other stuff going on, and no regrets. It was tough at the time, but no regrets. And you know, the appeal of just having a job, because grad school is one of the hardest things that you can choose to do. By the way, and so the idea of just having like a job sounded easy in comparison, and honestly, it is. Not saying jobs are hard, but have you ever been in grad school? It's like having three jobs, and none of them pay well. And so I was working in industry in and around Austin, and for some reason, all the biotech stuff was, I guess, because it's places where property is cheaper because they need a lot of land to have a laboratory. All of them had really long commutes, and also being in the laboratory is very like physically taxing. You're doing a lot of motions, you're on your feet all day. And I was inspired. I at the time had a lot of friends in video game development. um, that's a different story, different lifetime ago. And I want to give a shout out to my friend Dave Clean. I'll tag you on LinkedIn. That I don't know if you know that you inspired me. He was self-employed at the time, had his own indie video game studio, and would just work from wherever. He worked from home. He would go to interesting locations and work from wherever he wanted. And I had, over an hour of commuting every day. One of them was out in Bastrop. Another job I had was in the exact opposite part of town. And Austin traffic, even, it's I've basically structured my life around not having to be in traffic, and that is a quality of life improvement. That it's a little embarrassing to admit what a big part that was, but you do things for quality of life. And I even remember having a desire in my 20s, when I first was in the laboratory, to be self-employed by 30. I'll be honest, I don't even remember why I had that motivation. I think I just wanted to work for myself, and I didn't quite do it by 30, but I did it at 32 in 2015. I launched my first financial planning company after I think I gave myself a that I had to pass my first test, and prove my knowledge, and then I launched my first company August 15th of 2015. I didn't quit my job right away, but I did quit several months later. And so I would say, like, while I haven't been completely free from a salary job for 10 years, that's coming up soon, so I feel okay saying it's been 10 years. I have been self-employed for 10 years. Before that, I had a seaweed company. It was actually an aquaculture company called Austin Sea Veggies that I ran for several years. That as a way, well, honestly, in retrospect. This is the funny thing. You read these biographies of, people who are very successful or interesting. They're the kind of people who put out biographies, and they always make it sound like they had a plan. That it was like, I did X, then I did Z, A, B, C, D, all the way, and it was preordained, and I'm a genius, and I knew all along that I was going to be extremely successfand that's just not how life works. Maybe in retrospect, you can look back and decide that you did what you were doing the whole time, but that's not my experience. I've my own one life, but also the thousands of people that I've known and worked with. So I ran a company called Austin Sea Veggies. We had space in a greenhouse. I say we, it was me, in a farm called Agua Dulce off of Old Torf in Southeast Austin. And I sold seaweed to farmers markets, grocery stores, and restaurants. And it was a lot of fun. I honestly, I did it for fun. I knew nothing about business. I just liked doing things with sea life, and this was a way to do it and have it pay for itself. I had a 1,000-gallon basin full of artificial seawater with sea urchins and fish, and I was growing seaweed in it. I was actually put out of business. This is such a tangent. This is the all my episodes are tangent episodes, but this is the tangent episode. I was put out of business by Zoe Deschanel and her husband. They bought the farm where I was renting space, and no hard feelings. Like, they didn't want to keep renting to me. I was just some strange guy with buckets of salt water sloshing around in their new greenhouses. And at that point, I wasn't going to find another greenhouse that would rent to me that happened to be on my commute from my laboratory to my house in North Austin. And so I ended the project. I've spoken about it elsewhere, about that it was actually kind of a failure and all the things I learned from that. But that was the thing in retrospect where I got the confidence to start businesses. Before that, I'd always had projects, things, maybe money was trading hands, but it wasn't meant to be profit making. And that was the first time where, like, it would have been nice to make. I made a little bit of a profit, but not enough to justify all the labor. It could have definitely gone a different way. It could have been huge, but things don't work out. And this financial planning, I fully intended to be a side project. I grew up around people in personal finance. My aunt was a financial planner. My dad was a financial planner. We didn't sit around at the end of the day talking about stocks and IRAs and stuff, but it was in the aether. I knew a little bit more than the average bear, and I found myself helping my lab mates with financial planning. And, like literally stuff like going to the HR website and opening a 401k. If these really smart people didn't know how to do it, what about everyone else? And I launched my first financial planning company, and very quickly realized there was a huge need for this. So it was a business opportunity, but also that I liked doing it, that I could. I thought I was good back then. I'm much better now. I was good the whole time. Past clients, I was always good. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't, 10 years of experience is 10 years of experience. And, launched my first company, and very quickly started seeing how much demand there was for it, and decided to quit my job. And I quit that job in December of 2015. I was planning on quitting, but I wasn't planning to quit for a lot longer. What happened was I went to put in my vacation time. This is relevant to self-employment. Put in my vacation time for the holidays, and my boss said no. He needed me in the lab. He didn't really. But, no offense if you're seeing this. Uh, it is what it is, as one of my former bosses always said. And I decided that, that I was tired of having other people in charge of my time. And that's one of the biggest parts about being self-employed is all of a sudden you own your time for the good and the bad. Like if you're not the kind of person who's self-motivated and wants to go do it, which is wild because I always thought of myself as I thought of myself as a lazy person. And someone pointed out, you wouldn't be starting businesses and working all day if you were lazy. You do things that you're interested in. So if you have that kind of self-talk, tell yourself that. And yeah, went completely solo in December. It got busy. A lot of people wanted in, both on the client side and people seeing what I was doing and wanting in on it. And it turned into a real company. We had, investors, people who would, investing money in the company. We had employees, we had co-owners, all sorts of stuff, lots of projects going, and a real company running payroll, benefits, all that stuff. I was CEO. That didn't come until a few years into it. I was solo for the first few years. Then it turned into a real company. And then I unexpectedly but delightfully, my wife and I had a baby a year and a half ago. And during my paternity leave, it became clear that my priorities needed to change. I've noticed this with clients in general, that when one big thing in life changes, a lot of stuff comes with it. Really, everything. Like if you change jobs, a lot of things in your life are going to change. If you move, a lot of things in your life are going to change. Another lesson is no matter where you go, you take yourself with you. So don't think just because you're changing the conditions around you that you're going to fundamentally change. That requires work. Another important lesson. But, Unexpected had a very busy company, lots of projects and partners, and the vision just didn't line up with this new life that I had with a baby on the way, or a baby that had arrived, and realized I needed to go solo again. That before this, the company had been the baby. Up at night, responding to emails on Slack, dealing with partners, dealing with internal stuff, dealing with colleagues and trainings and HR and all the things that come with running a real company. Not that this isn't a real company, I'll get to that, but just preface. And that now my baby was the baby, and I needed that time and energy back. In retrospect, launching a new company while having a new baby was a little naive. That first year, we were just constantly sick. We still get sick, but not nearly as bad. We put the baby in daycare, and the daycare germs just not stop. We were probably sick, I'm not being hyperbolic, probably half the time. And so getting a new business going while also trying to take care of this newborn made things a lot slower than I anticipated. But one of the nice things and challenging things was, on one day I was CEO of this other company, and then the next day I was not, and I was a solo practitioner again. And that is being a little hyperbolic. There was more to it than that, but for the sake of this video, and I didn't realize. So I had to start everything from scratch. Right? All new registrations with the state, very important. If you're an investment advisor, required if you're an investment advisor, it is illegal to give investment advice for compensation if you're not registered. And registration took a long time. There was a hurricane, there was people getting sick, all sorts of stuff that just delayed it by months and months. And then once I was actually registered and got people joining the company, like clients, I had to start all the software I'm using, all of my methods, everything. I did not realize how stuck in my ways and comfortable I'd gotten kind of doing the same thing for the better part of 9 years. And so I'm actually realizing this as I'm talking, that when something changes, everything else tends to come with it. The way I work had to change because I needed new tools that I could not bring from my old way of working. And it took the better part of a year to start getting comfortable and feeling like it's real. And now, almost a year in, the anniversary of Lewis Weil Company will be in October. So it hasn't even been a year yet of Lewis Weil Company, but it's only in the last couple of months where it started to feel real. Like, oh, this is a real thing. Like, it's a real brand. It's been a lot of fun. Having to do everything, like branding and copy and just how I put myself out in the world. Has just been a lot of fun because I decided to make it be called Lewis Weil Company after a lot of thinking about it. It felt like doing anything else would be hiding behind a name. So because a lot of times I realized people are coming because they want to work with me. And that happens everywhere. You want to work with a particular person. They're not coming because they want to work with the company. They want to work with me. So I'm just going to put it, it's just going to be my name. They're here for me. It's just going to be my name. And I'm proud of that. Side note, I was thinking it would be called Y'all Financial, which I still think is a really good name. I don't think I ever grabbed that. So if anyone wants to steal it, go for it. And I don't know how I would have done this last, year and a half with the baby if I hadn't made this change, if I hadn't been self-employed. Because when the baby needs something, she needs it right now. You can't tell her, oh, that needs to wait until the end of the work day. You get a call from school that says you have a fever. You got to come get her. You got to go get her. And then you're probably going to be home caretaking for several days. My wife, not coincidentally, but unexpectedly, became self-employed as well. That was not the intention. I'll be honest, we didn't have much of a plan besides get the baby born and take care of her. But she also became self-employed, and being self-employed while having a baby, it's hard, but the flexibility really has. I don't know how we would I don't know how we would do it if we were both 9 to 5 the way we used to be. I know people do it. I know that you just have to find a workplace that understands and that you make up the time and stuff. But the big thing about self-employment is that you own your time. I probably work more than I would if I was definitely if I was working a 40-hour job, because I work a lot, but I work when I can and when I want to. If I have an idea at midnight and I feel like doing it, I work. It feels good. No one's making me do it. Definitely get a lot of time back from not being, sorry, people who work at bigger companies in functional meetings all day. I just do the work. I might have colleagues and employees again someday. There is something to be said. It gets lonely. There's no one to I can't talk about my work really because I work directly with clients and it's all private. And so there's no one to, you know, like in real time share stories and triumphs with. So being solo is a bit lonely. I do miss that. But there's a lot to be said for it. And I've found myself working with a lot of clients who want to be self-employed. I find this to be true for myself and other people in, you know, similar service jobs where you kind of end up working with people who are in a similar place in life. Like I'm 42 now. I was 40 before, right? I turned 40 right before the baby was born. And I was just kind of looking around in my life and realized that I was done with someday. That I still think I have a long time ahead of me. It's actually wild, you know, that I could live for decades more, that I might truly be middle-aged and have a lot of time in front of me. But all the the ambiguous some days, I'm done with that. And I find myself working with people who also are done with someday. And a lot of time that means becoming self-employed, because it helps to own your work and your time if you're trying to do things that require more time and energy than, you know, paid time off at a jobby job provides. So I've just noticed a lot of my clients are kind of similar age and either recently self-employed or trying to make the most of their self-employment, or are looking at self-employment, and it's a lot of fun. It's not for everyone. If it's not for you, that is okay. Not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur and doing their own thing. There's a lot to be said for having coworkers and structure and benefits. You know, when you're self-employed, you have to do everything, including you pay more taxes than people who aren't self-employed. There are benefits, like, you know, at your 401k, if you're self-employed, you know, if you're at your job and they give you a 3% match, hey, that's nice. When you're self-employed, you can, and you're solo, you get to decide what your match is. So if you have the money, you can say, you know what, I get a 200% match on my 401k. So there's benefits, but there's a lot to be said for just like a paycheck that shows up every month, and like the steadiness and unemployment and insurance. We spend so much money on insurance. It's good. I'm not complaining, but it's expensive, and there's a lot to it. It's not for everybody, and that's okay. But I think if we're reaching an era in American society where owning your work makes a lot of sense. And when I was a kid, I never would have thought of starting a company. And now it's second nature. I do it all day. Like, you come up with a name, you determine a structure. My business is an LLC. It makes sense a lot of times to be an LLC. You get an employer identification number from the IRS. You get dedicated business accounts. You do any registrations for compliance purposes that you need to do, and you're off to the business. You got to make that first dollar. I need to make a video about that. I love the first dollar symbolism. But yeah, no, like that's kind of the background and history of it. I have a lot of aspirations. The business is going well, but I have aspirations, and I'm thinking about what those are going to look like, and I'll have more to share in the future. But a decade, that's pretty significant. And thanks for listening. If you think you want help with your own self-employment journey, your own entrepreneurial journey, I love helping people with that. It's, I'd have to look, but probably more than half of my clients are self-employed, if not the vast majority. And I love helping people build up the finances and get their foundation so that they can become self-employed. Lewis, Lewis, Weil, Weil, company lewisweil.com. Lewis at lewisweil.com is me. Look me up. I'm easy to find. There's not a lot of other Lewis Wiles. And thanks for listening. Be well, y'all.